For the third time in a decade, the CWU is fighting against the privatisation of Royal Mail. Having defeated a Labour government twice on the issue, this new threat comes in the form of a Liberal Conservative offensive. So once again, the CWU has geared up for battle. The Keep the Post Public 2010 campaign was launched in August by the Shadow Home Secretary Ed Balls. Concentrating efforts on a local level, the campaign has so far targeted 71 Lib Dem and Conservative constituencies across the UK in an attempt to maximise pressure on MPs in both of the coalition parties and get them to realise that the general public is opposed to privatisation on all fronts. So today, the Union has once more brought its campaign to Westminster to deliver a very clear and important message. Royal Mail can continue to be a public sector success. Don't turn it into a private sector failure.
Now, in terms of where we're at, yes, there's a third reading on the 12th of January, but our campaign won't end on the 12th of January. Our campaign won't end when it gets in the House of Lords. Our campaign won't end if it gets royal assent. Our campaign continues no matter what. And whatever we have to do, whether it's taking our members out on strike, whether it's talking to Tory MPs, and believe you me, you know how difficult that is, or whether it's talking to Lib Dem MPs, we can win this campaign. Go out there, do the work, and together we win. Thank you very much.
Billy Hayes, what will it mean for the public if this postal legislation goes through?
Well, it'll be in a worse service. You know, the one price goes anywhere. That's from Land End to John O'Groats. That will be under threat. It'll mean the closure of more post office counters. That's the kind of impact of the privatisation of Royal Mail. And the idea that it's a public service will be undermined because what will matter is the business bottom line. It will be profit before public service.
So what will you be doing here today?
Well, today we've got a large body of speakers who are speaking out against privatisation. So all the nationalist parties, whether that's Plaid in Wales, Scottish nationalists from Scotland, of course, and all the parties in Northern Ireland. There's not one party that's in favour of privatisation. It's only the Liberals and the Conservatives, and we've got people like the Green Party. But then we've also got National Pensioners Convention, the Federation of Small Businesses. Lots of people saying that privatisation of Royal Mail is not necessary and will damage the service. We continue to put the pressure on the MPs. You know, we can at best stop this bill, but certainly ameliorate or change some of the worst excesses of the bill. And that's what we're doing here today, galvanising our supporters inside the CWU, but also outside and in the wider community.
I just want to say a few words from the opposition Labour team in Parliament, from Ed Miliband and from the front bench team from the Shadow Cabinet. We are completely opposed to the Postal Services Bill, and we are opposed to the privatisation of Royal Mail that is at the core of that
bill. John Denham, Shadow Business Secretary, why is privatisation not the answer for the Royal Mail?
The real problem is it's a key part of the national infrastructure. People right across the country depend on the quality and consistency of service. Once you sell it off, you lose the ultimate ability of government to influence what happens. And we know that a likely consequence is that business will be taken away from some post offices, for example, which will then shut. So immediately you start seeing the public losing the quality of their service, and down the line even the universal service obligation is clearly at risk.
I mean, these proposals are far worse than the proposals that Peter Mandelson was coming up with, which I thought were horrific. I mean, I think it'll be a disaster if it goes through. We've really got to do everything we can over the next few weeks to get the message through, particularly to government MPs. I'm pleased to say that the Labour Party is on side this time. It's arguing the case well. We've got to get out there and get as many Conservative MPs and as many Liberal MPs on our side so that we've got a chance of defeating it in Parliament.
The post office is an absolute community hub. It's the glue that holds communities together. What we should be doing is investing in those post offices, ensuring that they provide a whole range of wider services like microcredit and the post office bank idea. That is what we need if we genuinely want to build this famous big society of David Cameron's, not the privatisation of what is already a profitable and a good company.
we just need to look at what happened to all the other things that were privatised back in the 80s. The electricity, the water, the gas, the telecoms. We all pay more for them. I mean, thousands, hundreds of thousands of good working class jobs were wiped out, and boards appointed that pay themselves vast salaries and all these bonuses. It's just been a rip-off, and it'll be a rip-off here. So that the workforce aren't just fighting for themselves, they're actually fighting for the whole community, because if this goes through, everybody in Britain will end up paying more for a worse service for the rest of their lives.
This is selling the family silver, in the immortal words of Harold Macmillan from the 1980s. It means completely cutting off the Royal Mail from the public sector. No government control. Who knows who buys it? And that will be bad news, both for the service to the community and for local post offices.
I believe it'll be the death knell for the service, and there'll be many good, hard-working people who worked hard all their lives, a difficult job, unsocial hours, not being paid a king's ransom for it, but they do it because it's in their heart to do it. I'm proud to stand up for them, and I shall carry on fighting.
Of course, the argument against it is that you can't have modernisation within the public sector, something you don't agree with, I'm sure.
Well, that's absolute, complete and utter nonsense. I've never heard such a specious argument in all my life. There is nothing at all to prevent modernisation within the public sector, and every fool knows that that's an absolutely stupid remark to make. And I wonder why they keep repeating it, because it doesn't bear scrutiny at all. We need to modernise, yes, but nobody in this hall or anywhere is arguing against modernisation. I wouldn't argue, and your members won't argue about it. Yes, fine, let's modernise. But there's a way of modernising, not destroying the service.
It's really important that we build the broadest, boldest possible coalition to lobby coalition MPs and councillors too, not just in the marginal seats, but obviously that's where we need to prioritise, and we need to take that message home to local constituencies. National events like today are really important, but it's also really important that coalition MPs and councillors understand just how angry ordinary people feel about the threat to Royal Mail and how determined we are to resist and indeed to defeat this Postal Services Bill.
Royal Mail! Not for sale! Royal Mail! Not for sale! Royal Mail! Not for sale!
Dave Ward, the postal bill is based on the recommendations of the Hooper report. Now, those were supposedly addressed in the business transformation agreement, weren't they? So why now? Why is the government returning to this in your view? And wouldn't the post be better in public hands, as you suggest, because modernisation can take place there?
Well, what we think has happened is that basically a government's come into power. They want to ditch all their responsibilities for postal services. And you're right, the issue really was can we modernise this company successfully? And we believe that rather than supporting modernisation, which is difficult enough anyway for our members, and we do recognise that, privatisation is actually going to add to our problems. What we need is to be able to get on with modernisation in the way the agreement's set out. We need to be able to give our members the job guarantees that are in the agreement. We know that's going to be difficult, the content of their job may change, but at least we had some job security under the terms of that agreement. What we've got now with privatisation threatens all of that again. And it's just not right. It's not fair to our members to have to deal with these issues when we felt that we'd solved some of the problems, as you said.
350 years of UK postal services being destroyed by this government. Support your local posting. Support UK postal services. Tell this government it's not what you voted for. Royal Mail! Not for sale! Royal Mail! Not for sale! Royal Mail! Not for sale!
If you pardon the expression, it feels like déjà vu all over again. We have been here before. How can you ensure this time that you can win this fight yet again?
Well, you're right. We had a battle against privatisation in 1994, 2005, and more recently 2009. And we defeated those privatisation because it's not a popular, no opinion poll that we've ever done shows support for the privatisation. And we're confident if we can galvanise our support that we can defeat this bill and at the very least change some of the worst aspects of the bill. So when we talk to Conservative MPs about the universal service or the threat to post office counters, we get they listen and they're as concerned as we are, because they know the impact on their communities.
Tell me about what happened when you left here today and took your protest over the road to the government department responsible.
Well, here in Westminster Hall we had our rally, and we took postcards over to Vince Cable, and as we was crossing the road, a lot of people took a bit more time to cross the road, and there was a bit of spontaneous demonstration, and that obviously inconvenienced motorists and the traffic in London, but by no means as inconvenienced what people will be if Royal Mail is privatised. So we made an impact.
It shows the strength of feeling amongst your members and, as you say, certain sections of the public as well. And it also shows the will of the CWU is strong.
Absolutely. We've been in some difficult fights, political, industrial, whether that's in telecommunications or postal services. But we believe in fighting on behalf of our members, and we believe in fighting on behalf of the great British public. There's a valuable British institution under threat, and we're going to do what we can to make sure Royal Mail is not for sale.
Royal Mail, not for sale! Royal Mail, not for sale! Royal Mail, not for sale! Royal Mail!
Despite this being the fourth attempt to privatise Royal Mail by governments of all parties over the past 16 years, the will of the CWU to keep the postal service in public ownership remains strong. So, as one decade ends, the battle to keep the post public in this next decade has begun.